children need authority figures. They need someone to look up to. They need someone they can trust in.
Respect is earned, and so we earn it, and so they respect us. And we respect them as human beings.
How do I meet my child's needs and give them what they want while still maintaining healthy boundaries?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Extraordinary Family Life Podcast. We're your hosts, Greg and Rachel Denning, back after a long break and super stoked to be back.
So we have this very strange, awkward setup here. I have to talk about it because it's weird because our daughter is on a road trip and she took our other camera. So we decided rather than postponing starting the podcast another week, we would just go ahead and start now, even though it's a little awkward here on camera. But
it's a fun update because the older kids, our three older ones and two of their friends, decided to take a road trip across southern Portugal, all the way across southern Spain, hit some cool stuff, hit Sevilla and Cordoba and Barcelona, where they saw the Sagrada Familia. And then they did southern France, went up all through the Alps, which they loved. They were just thrilled.
I don't think they need the whole road trip.
No, I do, because it's so cool. But because somebody asked me yesterday, like, they reached out and they're like, hey, why do you live in Portugal? Like, what do you love about being over there? And I was like, well, our older kids just jumped in the car and drove across Portugal,
and now they're in
Spain,
Germany,
France, Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
They went through Switzerland, and then they just did Germany. It's like, how cool is that?
Yeah, we wanted the access to easy travel. I mean, it does put us super close to be able to drive to those places, and then they'll just fly back because they're dropping off the car. But
it's inexpensive. They're just having these epic adventures. They're setting up hammocks, and it's so cool.
Not sleeping well.
So it's, I guess this is part of our extraordinary family life too, and part of our lifestyle now that our kids are older. And we're going to answer parenting questions today, and a lot of them are like for parents who are just barely getting started, but we always want to look forward to the end result because that's what you and I did. As parents, we were always looking like, what are our kids going to be like as adults? What are their relationships with each other, their relationships with us? And I'm like, to me, like, this is it. And we have absolute trust in their capabilities to make good decisions, to handle any challenges or obstacles, to figure things out. I mean, they just went across all these countries and they'll just figure it out and they'll do cool stuff.
Yeah.
And they'll have challenges, obstacles. They were sleeping outside last night and thunder struck at 3 a.m.
Oh, I missed that update.
Downpour. And they all jumped in the car and thought, well, let's start driving. And so they started driving at 3. So they were in Münster first thing in the morning,
nice.
Let's go.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So
Fun.
anyways, fun, cool stuff.
So speaking of updates, though, because it has been so long and here we are rambling on already, we are going to answer parenting questions today because since we last published a podcast, which was, I don't know, more than 6 months ago, maybe 9 months ago, we became grandparents.
Yeah.
Our oldest daughter had her first baby, so we are now grandparents. And she specifically has asked us parenting questions, obviously. And so she sent us a bunch of parenting questions, and she's like, why don't you just podcast again so you can answer my questions and then I can listen to them? Because she lives in the U.S. She did actually, I went and stayed with her for a month or two, then she came and stayed with us for 2 months with the baby, so we got to spend a lot of time with him, early on, but now
still miss him every day, man.
They're in the U.S. So that is one of the reasons why we are starting our podcast again, is because we want to answer her specific questions.
And our 19-year-old was doing some nannying or au pair stuff with 4 little kids. And so she had lots of parenting questions.
Exactly.
Like, hey, what about this situation? What about that situation?
Yeah.
What did you guys do? What do you wish you'd done differently? So it brought up all these fun, great, interesting, powerful scenarios and parenting questions, so we want to share.
Yeah. Now, I do also, of course, want to mention the obvious potential elephant in the room. If you've already been following me on Instagram or in my Substack or our coaching, like, you already know the whole experience I've had with the Epstein files and all of the kind of stuff that came from that. Eventually, this is my desire, intention, I don't know if it's Greg's, I will be talking about that, sharing some of my experiences, my journey, my conversion, my coming to Christ. But starting out, we wanted to get back into the podcasting with just the basics of talking about parenting. So that's where we're starting. And eventually we might get to the other stuff. But if not, I'm talking about it on Substack anyways. So, okay. You ready?
Let's
I'll just
roll.
read the first one.
Yeah.
All right. So she sent us a bunch of questions. I would say probably 20 or 30 questions. And we're literally just going to go through them one by one. This will obviously end up being multiple podcast sessions, not just this one. So we'll probably go through 2 or 3 of them today. And as we do go through them, we know that this is a podcast and you're listening to us talk, but we do want it to be interactive as much as possible. So please send us your questions. If we say something and you're like, wait, how does that work with this scenario or with that? Like, we want to hear from you. So you can email us, support@extraordinaryfamilylife.com. You can send us a message on Instagram
or Facebook.
I'm, of course, at World School Family, and you're Greg.Denning.
Mm-hmm.
So reach out to us in those places because we do want to hear. Like, I really believe that the more specific a scenario, the easier it is for us to give specific advice as opposed to generalized advice for generalized scenarios. So
I would also say this, because a lot of these questions, they might sound like, and they will be specific to ages and stages, but there's going to be principles in there that are applicable throughout childhood.
Yes.
And so I don't want you to check out, because everybody listening has kids at different ages and stages. And so we might be talking about something that happens with toddlers or young kids, and you might have olders and you think this doesn't apply. It absolutely applies.
It's amazing how much it can apply to all the ages.
It's just a little variant at different stages, but it's the same, what's the wording? Maybe it's the same common thread the whole time.
Yeah.
From birth until adulthood, it's this thread that's weaving through the whole fabric of who they're becoming. And it's the same thing, just applied a little bit differently at each stage. So stick with us. If a specific question maybe you think isn't relevant to you, I'm going to try to make it relevant wherever your kids are at. And
there's something else that I want to add that I feel is so important. And I wish I could say this in some sort of summary every time I give advice. And that's essentially that there are always levels to the advice we're giving. Like, if I give you one piece of advice, by default, even though I don't say it or can't say it, that tool, that principle only works if you have the foundational pieces underneath it. Yeah. So sometimes I'll be like, oh, this thing in this scenario, and you're like, well, I tried it, it didn't work. Well, that's because you were missing this foundational piece. And that's because you were missing this foundational piece. So that's what makes it challenging to give advice, is because I'm giving the advice I use based on the foundation I already have in place. Now, if we were to sit down and talk through things, I would be like, oh, maybe there's a scenario where this advice didn't work. Now that I know your story, I realize that's because your baby cried it out when they were young. Therefore, they have attachment issues. Therefore, that strategy doesn't work as well because what they're missing is attachment. So the solution here then, before that will work, is building attachment with your child so that you have the foundation in order for this to work.
Exactly.
That is true in every piece of advice we give. Like, no matter what it is, there's going to be those foundational levels that if they're missing, it's not going to work. And so sometimes, it's not going to work as well. Sometimes you have to then go back to the foundational pieces. And I would love to, maybe we need to do this at some point. We kind of have in some of our coaching of giving each level a number and then saying, this is a level 1 strategy, right? This is a level 2. And if you don't have level 1, this isn't going to work as well, that type of thing. So, but I want you to keep that in your mind as we go through and answer questions, because I'm giving one piece, but I have to leave out the others because otherwise every answer would be 3 hours long.
And that's why coaching is so powerful, because especially if it's one-on-one or if we're coaching couples, then we can get very specific.
And we can say, well, what about this? And what's happening here?
We're asking, we're getting input, we're seeing, what has happened in the past. But that's also true in our group coaching that we do on Wednesdays with our, it's mostly moms. There's some dads there too, mostly moms, and it's parenting. Again, it's live. We're asking questions. There's this interaction. And so we can you ask us a question, we can ask you some questions to get more clarity. And I'm like, oh, okay, now here are the puzzle pieces that has to be put together for this to
Here's
work.
what's missing.
Hey there, this is Greg Denny. We want to reach as many people as possible and help as many families as possible with these conversations. And we want to keep this podcast ad-free forever. You can help us do that by subscribing on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, your favorite platform, and on YouTube. And leave a quick review and share your favorite episodes with friends and family. It makes a big difference. Thank you for being a part of this very important movement.
Okay, here's the first question. How do I meet my child's needs and give them what they want while still maintaining healthy boundaries? How do I find the balance between being strict or being gentle and being too strict? Example, I was at a 3-year-old's birthday party and the birthday boy wanted to show us his new room. Instead, he took us to the master bedroom because he liked that room better and his parents had chosen to move into the smaller room. How should situations like that be handled? Now, I want to start out first thing with defining some words here. So it says, how do I meet my child's needs and give them what they want? I have literally had people message me saying, you said we need to meet our child's needs. My child says they need 3 hours of video games per day. How does this work? Like, how do I meet their needs, right? When they tell me this is what they need. A child's needs are not what they say they need. A child's needs are the basics. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's things like they need food, they need shelter, they need safety, they need security, they need attachment. Those are the needs.
And love and connection and affirmation, and they need growth and development. They need significance. They need to be occupied in good things. They need good food. They need lots of sleep. They need to get outside.
Right.
Those are the things we're talking about, like core needs that, and we can talk about that more, but it's the core needs that make for a happy, healthy individual.
Right. And sometimes what a child needs and what they want are going to be in conflict. So when we're talking about their needs, it's not the things they say they need. It's the things that you, as a parent and an authority figure, which is what you should be. This is one of the foundational pieces I'm talking about. This is like level 1. You need to be an authority figure in their life. If you're not, if you see yourself as some sort of equal or some sort of like they're on the same level as you, unfortunately, parenting doesn't work as well because children need authority figures. They need someone to look up to. They need someone they can trust in. So you have to be an authority figure in their life if you want to have an effective, safe, healthy relationship with them. So that's one of their needs. And
they will confuse their wants with needs.
Absolutely it will.
And so as a parent, the parent's role is to discern clearly
what the needs are.
What's a want, what's a need.
Exactly. Yep. And then make sure they give them their needs, which sometimes will be what they want. Sure. Sometimes what they want and what they need are the same. If they're hungry, they need food and they want food. And so you should give them food. Yep. Food is not something you should like withhold or manipulate or whatever because
you're on a schedule or your family eats 3 times a day at a very specific time.
Right,
it's like,
exactly.
When have you ever had a group of human beings that are all hungry at the exact same time and all need the same?
So
that's
if a child
silly tradition.
So this is one of the things. If a child is hungry and they want food, that is also their need. They need food and they may need it at a different time than you think they should have it.
Yep.
So you should give them food. Now, they might want Oreos instead of something healthy. So then that's another case. Just because they want the Oreos or the whatever unhealthy food doesn't mean they need it or you should give it to them. So this is where you have to discern between their wants and their actual needs and then giving them what they want / really need, but not giving them what they want but shouldn't have, right? Exactly. Like I won't give my kids Oreos because they're just not healthy. So I give them healthy foods and I let them eat those healthy foods
whenever they want.
Almost pretty much whenever they want.
We've allowed our kids to just be in control of their own bodies and have access to certain things. They don't have free access to everything.
Right.
But they have free open access to many things so they can listen to their bodies and choose because I mean, just take that one in for a minute. You got a kid going from 0 to 25 and they'll hit growth spurts or they're in sports or athletics or projects,
some are more active than
or
others.
brain work. Yeah. And so like the demands on their body are going to be so different all the time as their body's changing.
Yes.
And they're not walking around with some monitor, like displaying what's happening in their body every time and what their caloric needs are. They need to know that and have access. And parents who are just constantly restricting that, I think, are limiting nourishment to the body.
Mhm.
But what we're not saying here is that kids get to eat emotionally and can devour whatever, whenever. And then you have an obesity problem because they need to overeat, for example. That's not what we're saying either.
And I think it's, so when we are talking about these types of things, we're talking about food. We want you to take this as an example of of something you can apply in other areas of life.
Mhm.
The food is a good concrete example of how these principles work, but we're not just talking about food when we're talking about the food. We're talking about how to discern between needs, actual needs, and wants, and then how to maintain healthy boundaries. Because again, here, the food is a good example. They need and they want food, but they might want a food that's not good for them or that's not healthy. That's where the healthy boundaries come in. But do you see the difference in the boundaries here? And this is one of the things where I think parents make their lives much harder than it needs to be because they have boundaries around the wrong things and no boundaries around the right things.
Yeah, exactly.
Or vice versa. Like they set up all these boundaries that make their lives harder while then having no boundaries about things that they should actually have boundaries about. So one of them is, like we talked about, you should, as much as you can, remove boundaries around when kids can eat, because that helps improve their behavior. It helps them it helps them learn how to understand their own bodies, to pay attention to their own bodies, to listen. And so when they're like, oh, I'm hungry, let them have food. Like that boundary should be removed. They should get food. But there should be a boundary in place as far as what is available for them to eat. Now, one of the simplest ways to do that we've done is we just don't buy it. We don't buy anything that we're not okay with them eating. And then if we buy something that's for a special meal or whatever, we say, don't eat this because I'm using it for a meal.
It has a purpose.
It has a purpose. So this is an example of how we do that. And this is one of the challenges of being a parent. We are the ones that are responsible of doing the extra brain work, the extra discerning to figure out, is this a want or a need? Should this have a boundary or no boundary? And it's difficult for us to always, I don't know how to help moms see this, because I can observe it, but I don't know how to help them know when they're doing it, when they're putting up boundaries that shouldn't be there, and when they have no boundaries on things that they should have boundaries for, right? This is one of the things where now I'm going to talk about that. This is where you need the guidance of the Spirit. This is when you need God's help. Like you need him to help you say, yeah, that shouldn't be a boundary, or that should be a boundary, right? So especially as we're giving you these tools, you're like, okay, Greg and Rachel talked about this. How do I know how to apply it in my life? Well, ask for God's guidance. I think that's the simplest way. The simplest answer is to ask him to help you know, where do I need to use this tool? Where do I have too many boundaries and where do I have not enough boundaries? And again, this isn't just about food. The other example that was given.
Let's do sleep, because
let's just do this one that they talked about, the 3-year-old with the bedroom, right?
Well, that's an extreme case. I wouldn't. Okay, it's an extreme, but there's a principle behind it. Let me share the thing on sleep real quick. A lot of moms are like, strict bedtime. My kids will be in bed at this time every night. Let's say 8 p.m. Well, again, you stop and think. You're like, wait, what's the likelihood? Even if you have one kid, but most of you have 2 or 3 or 4. What's the likelihood your kids are all tired at 8 p.m.? Like none.
Right.
One will be tired at 7, need to go to bed, and one will be going until 9. Like none. So we set these boundaries, and then the kids fight it. Of course, you're like, hey, it's 8 p.m., and they're like, I'm not tired.
Right.
And it's still totally light outside because it's summertime, and you're like, I'm holding my boundary because I want to be a good parent. You're like, no, you are operating in parental self-sabotage. Like that's a terrible boundary.
That's one example of how parents make their lives harder than it needs to be by having these arbitrary rules. Now, on the other side, we're not saying that children should have no restrictions at all about when they go to sleep.
So the boundary is kids need good quality sleep and lots of it. And they need hours before midnight. So there's the boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're going to go to bed. Yes, we're going to have a wonderful bedtime routine so they actually enjoy going to bed. And there's that. You shared a hilarious reel where they got this guy in a chair and he's about to go over a bungee. And the caption was something like your toddler at bedtime is like, no, wait. And it's like, I need a drink. I need to tell you something. I have a question. And they don't want to go to sleep. They want to stay out there. They feel like they're going to get serious FOMO as soon as they close their eyes.
Right.
And they just want to be with you. And you help them go to sleep. But sometimes they really, truly, they need time with you, truly. Because for whatever reason, there's this fear of, do I have access to my parents when I really need it?
Yeah.
And yes. And so sometimes with your kids and teens, you will stay up and you will talk because they need to know they have access to you.
Well, that's even true right now with our 9-year-old. She's our youngest. And in her mind, like bedtime is her alone time with mom and dad. And so she is just like talk. Right? Now, it can be easy for us as parents to think, I'm tired. I want to go to bed. I don't want to listen to you talk. And so we dismiss them. We push them away. We get in arguments. We force them to bed. This is one of the things where you have to distinguish between needs and wants. Yes, they need and they want to talk to you. And when you allow for that and you make space for that, that fills their bucket of needs and it actually produces better behavior, better sleep. Like you get more of the things you want because you're making space for this need and want that they have. Now, I also get it that you don't want to now be up till 11 talking to her. So I've started
or moms will hear this and be like, "Oh, okay, husband, we're not going to have sex now for who knows how many months or years
because our daughter.
I'm going to meet my kids' needs."
Right.
That's not it either.
Yeah. So, but what I started to do is to pay attention. I noticed this pattern. Okay, she's talking to us before bed. So now I'm like, I need to plan for that. Yep. And I'm going to make space and be like, okay, now we're going to start this bedtime routine earlier so we have time for the talking before you go to the bed. Or like even the other night when we were going to make love, I said, okay, I'm reading you 2 chapters and then you have to go straight to bed. No, none of the long talking, right? Yeah. And she agreed to that.
She's stoked. Yeah. Yeah. Great. I get reading time. Right. Fantastic. I agree. Get hugs and then to bed.
Yeah.
And it works. So, but that's being proactive in meeting the need and holding a healthy boundary.
So because we brought it up, what's the approach that we have done for bedtime? And that's generally been, we haven't had a set bedtime, like a specific hard and fast rule, because we had all these
23 years
children
and 7 kids. We never had a set bedtime.
Yeah. Because they would all be, and early on, okay, I wouldn't say never. Early on, I tried to do that. Because I thought, I'm busy. We had 4 kids under the age of 4. And I was like, by the time evenings comes around, I want lone, quiet time. Like, I need them to be in bed. But then I got into this trying to do the bed. Well, I tried to do you can say your part, but I tried to do the bedtime. And then it was like every night it was a battle trying to get the kids to bed every single night. And you finally said, let's stop the madness. Let's not do that. When they get tired, then they go to bed easy. Then it's so much easier when they go to, when they're tired than when we're trying to force them into this routine so they then go to bed even though they're not tired. And I paid attention to it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So we started to pay attention to the signs. And this is another key. So first we paid attention to the signs of when they started to look like they were tired. Then we acted on it. Right? Because if you wait and then you have an overtired child, now you're in trouble. So you act on it when you see the sign, right? So I'll be doing my thing and then we're like, there's the sign, you're tired. Almost immediately, I would be like, okay, let's go. And I would take them. And 2, I would make it a pleasant experience. If you want bedtimes to be easy, make it positive.
Yep.
Don't make it a negative.
This is true for everything.
Right.
We're not talking about battles. We're talking about boundaries. Your boundaries should not be battles. If they are, you're doing it wrong.
Right. Yeah. So it should be a positive thing. Now, if you have a routine that works and the child likes it, great. Keep doing it. But if you have a routine that you are fighting them on, drop some of those things. It shouldn't be a battle, and it especially should not be a battle right before bedtime. They need to have, because here's part of the key to good sleep for a child. They need to feel like before bed, they actually connected with their parents and they feel safe and secure and loved. And if you're yelling, fighting, screaming, trying to get them to do this and that in the bath and the other things, and blah, you're not creating that positive, feel-good environment. So no wonder they don't want to go to bed because they feel afraid. They're like, my parents hate me and now I have to go to sleep.
And then they hate their parents and there's resentful
Right.
and there's like, oh, great, the sun's setting. Here we go again. Here's another one just came up. We hear about moms who absolutely mandatory bathe their kids every night. That's not needed, not helpful, and it turns into a big battle. So that is a perfect example of making your life way harder than it needs to be, because somewhere in your head you got this rule, Mike, every single child takes a shower bath every single night. Like if you study even physiology, it's not healthy. And so now
for your skin and your hair and stuff.
All that stuff. So you're creating this unnecessary battle. It doesn't have to happen.
Right. So that's one of the things where we talk about needs and wants. You as a parent, and this happens in a lot of areas. I'm not just talking about this. Like we get this idea of things that must be a need in our family, and then we make it a requirement, but then it just becomes a battle.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we wonder why parenting is so hard.
Yeah.
This is, okay.
That's so good.
Let me mention this. Let me point this out. This is one of the approaches that I took to parenting that just works. Anytime anything became a battle, I reevaluated it like crazy. And I thought, do I actually need to do this thing? Now, if I didn't, I just dropped it. Or I would readjust it to make it work somewhere else in an easier way. If it was really something I wanted to hold a boundary on, then I would do that. But I reduced
to not make it a battle.
Well, yes, and sometimes there will be things that just become battles because the kids will be like, I don't want to do that. And I'll be like, I'm sorry, this is the boundary. But because I don't make that about everything we do, what we're eating, what we're wearing, when we're getting up, when we're going to bed, if you're making everything a battle and everything a boundary, then you don't really have boundaries. Like that's the thing about a boundary. It's a fence. But if everything's a fence, it's not a fence anymore. It's like what are the things that you put the cattle through? Like they have to go through this very specific, the stock. Well, I don't know what it's called, but that's what you're creating. It's more like you're creating this maze or this labyrinth.
And kids
hate it.
Hate that.
A real boundary is more like a fence where there's space to run around in the middle. And then when they get to the fence, that's when I say, no, this is the fence. I'm sorry, you can't cross this because it is the fence. Run around in all the space. You have all the space to do what you want. Here's the fence. So that's a key principle that just works. That's a foundational principle. That's like level 1 that just works. If you stop trying to, I need to figure out what the word is for that. Like if you stop trying to have cattle guards everywhere and instead just have free roaming space within the fence.
I think what happens is that we get lots and lots of rules in our heads about how things should be and what things should do. And some of them aren't even expressed. They're just in your head.
Right.
And I mean, lots and lots. And I think, some men do this, but women, I think, have more of a tendency to do it. They've got massive rule books in their heads. And so they think they're creating boundaries.
Right.
They're not. They're just putting regulations, restrictions, rules. I mean, now you become the government.
And I think part of the reason women do that, and at least from my own experience, being a woman like that, being a woman, is we want greatness. We want these ideals. We want the idealized vision of this family life, right? And maybe people even look at us and they're like, oh, we want that. Greg and Rachel must have got it because they were so strict and so orderly and the irony is that's not true. In fact, we've had people come stay with us, lots of families over the years, and some of them would be like, we expected you guys to be like drill sergeants. Like it was going to be so strict, so orderly, and then they're like, it's not. Like you guys are very free and open. And so that's, I think, what people don't realize is that in order to create the thing that you want, which is this idealized vision
It's children with super high standards.
Yeah, children that have their own high standards, you have great relationships with them. That comes from more freedom, not less. Fewer rules, not more, right? But that also inherently includes very firm boundaries on the rules you do have.
Mm-hmm. So fewer rules. Let's go boundaries. I don't even like rules so much. We have some rules, but fewer boundaries, but are firm.
Right.
And fewer standards, but they're high.
Yes.
And the standards are not enforced, they're absorbed.
Sometimes they are enforced.
Well, absolutely.
And that's what I want to get into next.
Yeah. Along the way, you have to enforce them.
Right.
But even then, it's rare, like you said, and it's like, no, I'm holding this. And so the kid might push back and resist, and kids will resist. They'll try to find your fences. They'll try to push your boundaries. They'll try to knock over your barriers, whatever. But they're just running and bouncing off, and you're just like, and you're smiling and loving.
Like,
and
this
like,
is the wall.
I'm holding this boundary, and they're like, no, like, it's not going anywhere. I still love you, and I'm gonna sit here and smile and be pleasant while you throw yourself against the wall until you realize I'm serious about this one.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell them why, and it makes sense for them. If I set an arbitrary boundary that makes no sense, there's this cognitive
Especially
dissonance.
if there's a lot of them.
Yeah. And there's like, it doesn't make sense, and they hate it. So you guys know I teach this class for teenagers, and I mentor teenagers. So literally almost every weekday I'm meeting with teens. And a few weeks ago I asked them, I said, how many of you, like, your parents have rules or restrictions or expectations that you don't understand, that you don't agree with, and you don't know why? All of them. And I was like, share it. And you could see it. You could just see this resentment and bitterness come up. It's like, yeah, my parents do this, and it makes no sense. And when I ask them why, there's like, don't talk back, and rah, it's this battle. It's all coming from the parents. And so if you have a rule and you can't thoroughly and clearly explain it to your kids at their level so they get it, you got to question that rule.
Right.
And probably throw it out.
Well, and that actually ties in with what I want to talk about, because I think, again, as I said before, there's layers to all of this stuff. And what we've talked about, including the boundaries and the freedom within the fence, it only works if certain other things are in place. And one of the other things that I think people have missed from our coaching, from our podcast, because I feel like we haven't talked about it as much, because it's something we did when our kids were younger and it established the culture, and then we didn't have to do it anymore or as much. And that is being willing to exert our parental authority, even, we've admitted it, even sometimes if that included spanking or that included physical restraint. When our children were younger, we did that. So when we're talking about this thing and when we're saying, oh, let them run free in this fence, this isn't the gentle parenting. This isn't like you get to do whatever you want. This isn't like
it's not the free range kid that acts like
the unschooled, unparented child. We're not talking about that, because we did have very firm boundaries that we physically enforced when necessary, right? Because that helps to establish the security that comes from knowing where those boundaries are. For example, one of the things that we were very strict on early on, well, a couple of them, was like things like violence, no hitting or biting. Like that just was not allowed. And if it happened, then we would very firmly either restrain them, like we would grab their hands and hold them. Now we would always start off gentle of like, hey, don't do that. Or we would call it barking. So if they did something that was out of line, we would bark, which meant that's when we would raise our voice. Now, most of the time we don't raise our voice. That's why it actually works, because now it gets their attention of like, whoa, why are they raising their voice?
And I think it's important. The majority of the time when we raised our voice, it was by choice of strategy, not because we were losing our control over our own emotions.
Not that that never happened with me. It did. But in the intentional approach here was, I'm going to intentionally raise my voice right now to let them know that what they just did was not okay. Sometimes that would be enough. So it'd be like, we do not hit. And then I would reassure them with my love, and I'd say, hitting's not okay. If you're upset, then here's what I do. I'd also give them an alternative. If you're upset, here's what you can do instead.
Yep.
You can come to me, you can talk to them, and I would give them alternatives.
Look, I want to emphasize.
Well, let me finish it really fast. If they then continued to do it, then that's when we would bring in the physical restraint. So we would literally grab their hands if they did it, or even if our kids bit, I would like squeeze their cheeks. I'd be like, no biting. Yep. We don't do that. That's not okay. So that's when I would bring out my mean voices.
Perfect. And you're modeling it right there. So I love this, especially a lot of the guys in my coaching group or parents are like, yes, thank you. Like, thank you for telling me what you would say. Because I often don't know what to say or how to do it. So I actually want to walk through this because I've seen parents grab their kids and they're quite violent and hurtful when they grab their kids. So you might hear us say we would grab their arms to restrict them, and you might envision us violently grabbing or squeezing or yanking on their arms.
Because I know as an early parent, a young parent, and I think it has part to do with still just growing up as a I became a mom in my early 20s, and you're still growing up, right? And it's this almost like this rage or this anger of like where you want to get back at them or you want to punish them or hurt them for doing that. That is not what we're talking about, because that is wrong. We are the adults. Even if I'm young and I'm in my 20s, I'm still the adult compared to them. So my job is to lovingly teach them. So if I'm pinching their cheeks, I'm not trying to hurt them or making them pay for their sins. I'm like, no, I'm getting their attention. This is not what we do. We don't do it.
Physical touch with the look and the voice saying, we don't do that.
Right. It's getting their attention.
It's not hurting them. Even often when we are spanking
Even if
the
I would hurt them, I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just want your attention.
The spank was never like a hard physical, like this is going to hurt them. It was a touch. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? I'm so sorry. Right. So they would cry or like, oh, I'd be upset, but not because the spank hurt. It's because they got
shocking
spanked.
Or surprising.
Yeah. It's like, hey, we don't do that. Now, what I want to point out here, this principle is spot on from toddlers to teens to young adults. And you still do that. So maybe your kids are in the kitchen at family night and one of them says something really rude to the sibling or, jumps in and mocks. Maybe this happened recently where one of our younger ones attempted something that she was nervous about. And she did a good job, but she messed up. As soon as she was done, man, older ones were on her like, hey, don't do that.
We were on them.
We were on them. It's like,
for getting after her.
Don't you do that.
Because it was playful criticism, but we're like, hey, she was nervous to do it. She did it. You start with praising her and saying, good job. You did it.
You don't bust them.
You did a good job.
So whether, and maybe there's, the older siblings, they're tweens or teens and maybe they take a cheap shot, a punch or something or a hit or slap. And you're like, hey, that is absolutely unacceptable. Don't do that.
Now the key also with this is following up with love. Yep. So again, we're doing it from a place not of anger, not of rage, not of punishment, not trying to hurt them. We're doing it from a place of discipline and correction because we love them.
And we're not trying to embarrass them. We're not trying to shame them. We're not trying to degrade them.
It's
we're
just
not trying to
holding that
belittle
line.
them. Yeah.
And then immediately or soon, because sometimes immediately it's not appropriate or they're not receptive to it, we're following up with love.
Yep.
And we're saying, hey, I did that and said that just because I need you to know where that boundary is. But I love you. And, we all make mistakes. It's okay. Just don't do that again. It's not acceptable.
Yep. And you've often heard us say connection and correction. Even in situations like that where there needs a correction, we'll often go over and connect and be like, hey, buddy, that was absolutely unacceptable.
And I will point it out here. There are some cases where you flip it really fast. You correct quickly because it needs to be done. And then you go back to the connection where generally, the correction. When we talk about connection before correction, that's generally if, say, they're squabbling and it's the normal, like they're not crossing any boundaries, but it's annoying and they're arguing. Connection in that case, instead of correcting them, works better because if you just go and you're like, stop arguing, stop fighting, that doesn't work. But if you go over and you're like, hey,
come here,
let me give you a hug. You guys seem to be upset. Let's hug. Let's cuddle. We can talk it out. You're connecting with them and helping to fulfill some of those needs so that it makes the correction easier and more effective.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, should we, before we end, answer this extreme example? about the bedroom?
So yeah,
Because I have seen it.
I don't even know, but like if I guess I can imagine it where the 3-year-old wants the bigger room, and finally they're like, okay, you can have it. Like, and I can see it happening because often a child becomes the tyrant in the home. The child becomes the boss.
I think especially with the gentle parenting approach, and maybe even with people, I've seen this happen multiple times where we've seen it often in our coaching. If parents are parented one way as a child, then they often go to the other extreme to parent their own children, one way or the other, right? And so this, I imagine that this scenario is something like that, where in the best effort of trying to be good parents, they're going to the other extreme. And so they are giving lots of leeway to their children. They want them to have what they didn't have. They want them to be happy. They want to fulfill their needs. They think that that's what they're doing, right? And so they're
our 3-year-old wants the best room.
Yeah.
So we'll
and
definitely...
so we're like, oh. And this is one of those areas where you actually need to establish your authority as the parent, as the authority figure, as the provider, as the one who pays the bills, as the one who, you know what I'm saying? Like, and this was something that we always did in our parenting. We let them know, like, we love you and we're grateful for you, but we pay the bills. We buy the food. We do all these things. And therefore, because we do that, we get the master bedroom, right? We're married. We get that room.
You guys, we've lived in hundreds of houses, Airbnb or rentals all over the world. And we'd go in and it was always fun. It was always exciting. We get to a new place.
It was always often Kaya. Yeah. Kaya, we're talking about you.
And she'd be like, be live for this. It's like, this is it. Yeah, this is the room I'm taking.
We show up at an Airbnb, like, around the world. We've traveled to like 62 countries. And inevitably, Kaya would be like, this is the room I want. I'm like, this is the master bedroom. We're getting this room because we paid for it, right? And that was always the case. We were paying for it. So we got the master bedroom, right?
So this is cool because then we established the boundary and the standard. So then, the years keep going and it still happens today. We go in, we get to a new place. They love exploring. They run to every room. And now they're like, oh, that's mom and dad's room. Like they go find the coolest, best spot. They're like, that one's for mom and dad. Yeah. And then they go looking for the others.
I even remember one time we had a layover in Switzerland and our boys got the room that they thought that was the best. Like they thought it was an amazing room at this hotel. And I remember that we went to go get food and they were like, Mom, do you want this room? Do you want to come look at it? Because I hadn't seen it. They're like, do you want to look at it and make sure maybe you want it?
We got the better room.
We got the better room. And I went up there and it was fun, but I was like,
that was cool.
It's like, no, you guys have it. Our room's great, right? But I love that how they've established this thing. But the reason why this is important, again, you've got to think about it from the long-term perspective. This isn't about being mean to your kids and thinking that they're somehow below you and you get the better stuff because you're the adult. This is about how the world works. This is about responsibility. We have taken on more responsibility than them. And with responsibility also comes privilege. You don't get the privileges without the responsibility. This is part of the problem of this coming generation. They are entitled because they literally believe they deserve privileges without the responsibility. Yeah. So when you teach the principle of like, no, we're carrying the responsibility, therefore we get the privileges, that's how it works. That's how you prevent entitlement because then they begin to think, oh yeah, you're right. I haven't earned it. I don't deserve that because I haven't been responsible enough. Right?
Yeah, there's this message been going on and it's still prevalent. It's like, you deserve this. You deserve You're going around, we're telling everybody they deserve all the deserve. You just because you draw breath.
Because
you exist, you deserve this. And no, it doesn't work. And our kids respect us. And respect is earned. And so we earn it, and so they respect us. And we respect them as human beings. And we did since they were tiny. It's like, I respect you as a being. You're not some little thing that I can manipulate. Like this whole thing we went off for years is people are people, no matter how small. It's like, okay, there's respect there. So we respect that. They respect us. They love us because we love them.
Which I think some parents don't understand how that connects then to what we were saying of like, oh, I'm going to grab your cheeks, or I'm going to spank you, or I'm going to physically restrain you. That is part of the respect piece. Like if someone respects you, or you just feel like you deserve respect, say I'm the mother and I'm like, I deserve respect. I'm going to respect you, but I also expect you to respect me. That is why I physically will restrain them if verbally doesn't work, to teach them I deserve respect. So no, you can't bite me. Your sister deserves respect. So no, you can't hit her. Mm-hmm. I am the enforcer of respect because you deserve it and I deserve. I'm not going to go around biting you for no reason. I'm not going to go around hitting you for no reason, but I am the authority. And therefore, it is my job, my responsibility to, if necessary, physically enforce respect so that they recognize how seriously I am. If I only talk about it and I say it 1,000 times and nothing happens,
there's no respect.
There's no respect.
None. And the way you enforce it is done with respect as well. So
yes.
Like we were saying, it's not out of meanness. It's not out of hurt. Like so our other daughter was out with these moms and she's watched these moms. They're trying to do the gentle parenting. And so like, please stop. Will you please stop? Will you stop treating the other kids like that? Will you stop breaking toys? Will you stop biting? And the kids don't listen at all. Like nothing. Finally, the mom in embarrassment, exasperation, grabs them, yanks their arm.
There wasn't physical involvement. It was all verbal.
Well, right, but
that's why it was.
But then there was the physical one later.
Oh,
she just grabbed, yanked off, and our daughter Lee was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, and then others were like, "That's why we don't do physical force." It's like, yeah, but we never did it like that. So it's like trying, and then they blow a gasket and they yank them and say mean things like, what's wrong with you? You're so this, that, the other. I want to make my point here. We respect even in the physicality of the restrainment. So when the kids were little and they would just blow a gasket, they were just going wild. I would physically hold them, but gently. I just created space. I wasn't squeezing them. I was just holding them. And so then they would kick and I would just put a leg over their legs. And this only happened a few times. And they would hold their hands and I'm holding them. So I'm creating the space and they could move and wiggle. I wasn't squeezing them. I wasn't insulting them. Like, I'm right here. I love you. As soon as you calm down, I'll let you go.
All the while speaking in a calming voice.
And saying that, I love you, bud. I love you. You're just too upset. You're doing things you shouldn't be doing. You got to calm down. And then as soon as you calm down, I'll let you go. And they would take a breath and I'd let go and I would honor it. And then if they try to bite me or headbutt me or scratch me or something, I'm going, no, you can't do that. And I'm still good. So I'm still respecting them.
This was probably when they were like 2, 3, 4.
And
sometimes 5.
Kimball, who's 21, he was the resistance. Like he wanted to push the boundaries so hard. And because we respected him, we taught him to respect us. We held the standards. He holds super high standards for himself. And we have a phenomenal relationship because we had a couple kids with such strong wills. We could have gotten into a battle that now as they're adults, I know we would have no relationship. They would have left and been gone. And we see it all the time. I see so many teens, and they cannot wait until they're 18 so they can run as far away from their parents as possible. We just had a young adult here with us, and that exact same thing was said. As soon as I turn 18, I'm out, and I'm never going back. Can't stand my parents. And it's because they're trying to force control in dumb ways, and maybe with strong-willed kids, but you don't break them. Learn how to navigate that and guide. So even with the 3-year-old that wants reign of everything, it's like, no, you're not a tyrant. You're not going to manipulate me. I'm going to hold the boundaries that we've talked about in this episode in a healthy way. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to meet your needs, not all your wants and whims. I'm going to meet your needs so you're happy and healthy and we have a great relationship.
So, but then circling back on that a little bit, well, first because one of the scenarios I heard my daughter explain was there was all of this talking, nice asking going on, and then
no results.
No results, and then a child crossed the line, and then there was a lot of verbal abuse, like shaming, saying mean things that my daughter was like, oh my gosh, parents shouldn't be saying things like that to their children.
Ever.
So if you're gentle parenting and then somehow you think it's better just to say mean things or to yell at your kids than to do some sort of physical restraint, I don't see how that works. It doesn't add up for me. And it doesn't work in the long run.
It does so much harm.
Right. So it's better for us to just be an authority figure and if necessary, use the physical restraints with love. That's way better than shaming our children and yelling at them and saying mean things to them. And insulting them.
So I guess the key is here, physically remove them, but with calmness.
Exactly. And love.
Yeah.
Right.
So don't hesitate to physically intervene if a kid needs it, but do it in a way that is not insulting or harmful.
Right. Or again, when I say mean, it's an intentional meanness. It's almost like a facade of meanness to get the child's attention. It's not coming from a place of like meanness in my heart.
And it's not insulting, rude, belittling,
punishing.
It's not mean. Like I'm not trying to get at him or hurt him or embarrass him.
It's like I'm using my mean voice to get your attention.
Mean may not even be the right word. It's harsh.
Yeah.
Or if we're pleasant, like we have volume, we're loud, we laugh, we play, we have a very pleasant family culture and dynamic. So if either of us are like, hey, you crossed the line. That was totally inappropriate. It's like, whoa, that's way. And they're like, oh man, I'm so sorry.
So, and then this actually was the second point I wanted to, and maybe we'll end on this because we're circling back now because we talked about putting in the fence, putting in the boundaries, and then allowing freedom in the middle. But then, if necessary, enforcing those boundaries with physical action, physical restraint, physical containment. But then now if we go back to talking about the freedom within the fence area, this is another place where, again, I just see parents making things harder for themselves than it needs to be because it's like they're literally making rules out of everything. And so I'm going to give a couple examples, but in my mind, there are just too many parents who have too many rules about things that shouldn't be rules. And so then when they want to enforce boundaries, it's that much harder because the kids are like, they're fighting you nonstop because they feel like everything is a boundary. Every single thing they do is a boundary that you're telling them no. So one of the approaches we've actually taken is I try to say no as little as possible. I try to let them do as much as they can. Now I might make adjustments for that, right? If they want to play with a ball and they want to kick it in the house, great. But I might say, hey, do it over here where things aren't going to get broken. Or, if necessary, take it outside. But I'm not going to say, stop doing that. Stop kicking that. Stop touching that. Stop doing this. Stop doing that. Stop it. And I see this all the time. Like for the past 20 years, I've seen it. Parents are just constantly telling their kids all the time the things they shouldn't do. And so it's no wonder that the kid gets tired of listening to them because you're constantly telling me all the things I shouldn't do. If you flip that around, again, you think about the fence. In the fence, you have freedom. So if they want to do something, my brain is going to go to work to figure out how can they do it in a way that makes me okay with them doing it, right? Whether that's like, oh, you want to paint? Okay, let's set up this space right here for painting. Please don't take it over to the white couch. Oh, you want to play with the ball? Here's how we do that. Oh, you want to do this thing? Sure, let's figure it out. I'm in charge.
Try cooking? You want to try fixing something?
I actually go to work mentally thinking, how can I say yes to this? How can I make this something they can do? And I want to say yes to as many things as possible. If I do that, my kids love me and they love their life. And then when I actually say no, they're like, okay, sure. Because I don't say no that often. So when I actually tell them, hey, don't do that. And I almost always say, here's why. Don't do that because this could get broken. Don't do that because it will ruin that. Then they're like, oh, and then they start thinking. And now I don't have to micromanage them all the time because they think on their own. Like my kids, even though they're 9, 12, and 15, my youngest, like they think. Yeah. They're not like just doing stuff that's going to ruin stuff or this or that or leaving a mess. They think through it. And it's amazing to see how just in simple ways they're responsible and accountable because they've learned how to think because I verbalized to them, don't do this, here's why.
Yep.
You're teaching your children how to think when you do that.
Exactly. Yep. So
as opposed to just, sorry, let me finish. As opposed to like what you were talking about before with the teenagers when they're like, my parents have all these rules that make no sense. If you have all these rules that you never explain, they don't get it and they just think you're annoying and obnoxious.
So instead of wanting obedient kids that do what they're told, you want kids who know how to think and make good decisions.
Yes.
Because then as they get older, you have fewer and fewer and fewer even boundaries, because the kids have self-imposed boundaries and standards, and they know how to think. Like I don't have to say anything because they think through it. It's so amazing.
Yeah. And I just want to say one thing. Not that obedience is a bad thing, but I feel like obedience is more powerful when it becomes self-directed because they understand.
And they're obeying a standard that they have, not an authority figure.
Which can sound in a way like it sounds like we're countering what we said, because we do need to be established as an authority figure and they should obey us, but that obedience comes because of respect, and that respect comes because we explain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's a cycle that builds on itself. We explain why I want them to be obedient, and then that helps them to be more obedient, and then it gets to where you can just ask them to do things because they're like, I know my parents don't ask me to do things unless it's for a reason or it makes sense. Like it builds that trust that makes them want to obey because we're willing to give the reason, if that makes sense.
Yep. I thought of one example that I think we need to share, because when you're saying I want to say is yes as much as I can, well, kids are constantly asking for screen time, video games, entertainment, and we just have a hard stop on that. There's a boundary there. For me especially, I was never, ever, ever on board with video games at all. I was like, nope, hard stop. That is not good for the brain. And there's all so much kickback and all the other kids do it and everyone's doing it. I'm like, no, we're just not doing that. So even, kids, hey, can we play video games? I was never, how can I say yes to this?
Right.
Nope. I will never say yes to that.
So it was one of the
We
fences.
just really want candy. We want soda. We want healthy things. Nope. I was never getting creative of how can I say yes to something that's not good for them. And for me, at least, my foundation there was always, is this good?
Is this a need versus a want?
Well, but even that is like, yes, but is
fulfilling. What I mean is going back to fulfilling their actual needs versus like a need they say they have versus a want.
Yes, you're right, 100%. And there's also lots of other things that'll come up. They're like, it's not a need, it's whatever. But I always measured it like, is it good for them? Long term, short term?
Well, and that's what I mean by a need. Like if it's good for them long term, that's fulfilling their needs. If long term it's not good for them, like video games, then it's not a need.
Yeah.
And therefore, even if they want it, we're saying no, because it's just not good for them.
Right. And then there's things like skydiving. It's not a need, but man,
you'll
awesome.
Try to figure out how to say yes to that one.
How can we go skydiving? And we took our kids. The youngest that day we jumped was 10 years old. We went and jumped out of an airplane, and as a family, it was amazing. But pick the things, like if it's bad for the brain or the body or the soul, hard no, I don't care. Like we're not doing that. And we'll establish that and we'll explain why. So it's still within the fortress. I'm trying to say yes to as many things as possible, but I'm never going to go to yes for anything that compromises mind, body, and spirit.
Yes.
It's like,
exactly.
That's a no-go. Well, all the other kids or the kids are come over, I'll do this, like sleepovers. We're like, nope, not going to happen. And there's other examples that I think will come up. Maybe you guys have questions and you can send over the questions, but we're very, very clear about what's allowed, what's not allowed. And then that's always a hard no, but it's never just a no, because I said so. Like we don't say that. We never said that. I hated that. Growing up, I'm like, I hate that. Don't ever say that to me. Like that's the worst thing you say. Give a good reason. And if it's a no, it's a no.
And sometimes I will even say, I might say no, and they'll be like, why? And I'll be like, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to have to think about it. And then I'll let you know. And so it's kind of like it's a delayed no, maybe with a possibility of a yes or a reason for the no, right? And so then, I would think about it, and then I'd be like, okay, it's a no, and here's why. Yeah. I thought about it. I prayed about it.
You were always really good with yes after
or yes,
yes, but
if.
Yes,
and that's another thing that because when you talk about saying yes to as many things as possible. I'm glad you clarified on those things that I say that we don't say yes to ever. I would also often say yes if or yes when. So yes, you can do that if you've made your bed or if you've had breakfast or if you've done this. Yes, you can after you finish your studies. So again, that's another technique of making my life easier, right? Rather than harder than it needs to be. Is so many parents, and this is like a teeny little like change in your wording or your thinking or your approach that honestly makes things so much easier, because I see so many parents who are constantly like, no, 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 no. And then they'll even say, no, you need to do this. When if you just switched your wording, you said, yes, if you do this. It's a little thing that's like huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
It's a massive difference.
Yeah.
So start doing that.
They see you positively instead of negatively.
Yeah, exactly. So just start doing that with everything. Be like, yes, you can do this if you clean up your dishes. Yes, you can do that if you apologize to your sister, if you're nice to your sister, right? Or I'll even say that. Yes, you can do this activity as long as you guys are nice to each other while you're doing it, right? So I make it conditional, because that's another thing of teaching them this idea of not being entitled. It's recognizing responsibility, like privileges come through responsibility. So yes, I want to say yes to these things without making you entitled. So I give requirements to them, because it's helping them realize that they get to earn their privileges, right? So, yes, you can have this thing, this treat I bought if you XYZ.
So I have a very specific example. 10, 11, 12-year-old comes up and says, Mom, Dad, can I get a phone? The answer is yes, when you're mature enough to handle it, which will probably be when you're over 16.
Right, exactly.
Right? And they might say, well, can I get on social media? You'll have your daughter comes to you. Maybe she's 13, 14, and she's like, can I get social media? And you say, yes, probably when you're 17 and you're mature enough to handle it. And what? All my friends, why? And then you tactfully explain that social media it's not correlated, it is causing mental illness in girls. And so they say, like, if they get it, it's at 16 and up. And so when you say, sweetie, I love you way too much to let you have mental illness unnecessarily, or at all. We're not going there. So yeah, when you're over 16, probably 17, 18, and you're mature enough to be like, I don't even really want it, and I'm not going to get on and just consume endlessly. So screens are dangerous. Caffeine is dangerous. We just don't do any caffeine. So I'm never going to be like, sure, son, you can buy Rock Stars and all the other energy drinks out there. And it's like, no. And I'm like, here's why, buddy. That stuff will wreck your body. And you do the homework. Don't listen to me. You go research it. Find out. See what it does to your brain and your body. See if you want to be dependent on it and what it does. And they're like, yeah, I never want to drink that stuff. I'm like, all right, let's figure out how to have other things, right? So again, get clear about who you want to be, how you want to live, family dynamics, family culture, family legacy, what stays, what goes, and lean into that. And you guys, you see, there's so much here. So if you guys want coaching, we do personal individual coaching. Rachel and I lead a group together on Wednesdays. I have a group for men that we meet Monday morning and Thursday morning. And we do all of this because we want to help. And there's so many specifics. There's so many scenarios. And kids are different. Your kids are different. And almost every family has a really challenging kid. And so the things that work for their kids doesn't work for that one. So there's so many scenarios here. So I'm just sharing this because it helps. And when we get the coaching, it's rocket fuel. It's just so much power and leverage to create the transformation we want to see.
Well, it gives the opportunity for us to help you have discernment, to kind of dig into the details. Because a lot of times the actual answers come from better understanding the details of not only what's happening right now, but the family dynamics and things that have happened in the past and how they were raised and different things like that.
This happened again
yesterday. It really
yesterday.
comes down to some of those details that helps make the difference. Because again, like we've said multiple times, that we've said in all the coaching that we do, Like, we can give you tools, we can tell you strategies and things that we work, but if you don't have the discernment from God, from the Holy Spirit, from those sources, then it becomes really difficult to know when to use the tool you need to use, right? Like, we have to have that guidance, and we need to know more. You need to understand more about the bigger picture to figure out, like, oh, this is why this tool isn't working right now. It's because of that. So I got to go back and fix that thing, and then this will work.
And my mind is going through countless examples of when that's happened with coaching clients. It's so cool.
Right.
But
it requires a lot of discernment.
Heaven's help, and we're coming up with ideas, and we're strategizing. It happened again yesterday, a client facing a big problem, like a big problem. I was just sitting there praying because it's a big, big problem, and it tried so many things and trying to figure things out, and then we're talking this idea. What about this? Right?
I love that.
And there are solutions that come to even the biggest, baddest problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes that kind of
sorting,
processing, the effort, the process, all of that. Right. Like, really get into it. We don't have to stay. I've met with families who it's a dumpster fire without an extinguisher, and like so much fighting, so much chaos, so much resistance. Like, family life sucks. Like, the parents and the kids are literally crying every day, and they all hate their life.
And that's a scenario in our minds where it's harder than it needs to be, and sometimes we're I would say in most cases, I hate to say that, but in most cases we're self-sabotaging. Yep. We're doing it to ourselves, but we don't know that we're doing it to ourselves. I just thought of this analogy, and I think I want to share it because I feel like it's relevant to this. There's this idea or this concept that I recently came across in some of my studying, and it has to do with a stronghold. Like, there's these strongholds in our life. Sometimes it's a good thing, but sometimes it's a bad thing. It's like this, maybe it's even a generational pattern or a generational history of this thing that happens, or like this just family culture patterns or behaviors that are just, it's like a stronghold of problems. Mm-hmm. And I was pondering this the other day. I was out doing chores here on our little farm, and we have this pig pen area, and I was watering the plants out there. And for some reason, I just felt compelled to wash this rock behind me. And I'm like, this makes no sense. Why would I wash this rock? Like, it's a giant rock in a pig pen. It doesn't need to be washed, but I just felt like compelled to wash it. And so I'm spraying it off and washing it. And I'm like, this is weird. It doesn't make sense. And then there was this hole in the rock, and I started spraying water up the hole. And inside this hole was this giant nest of ants that had built itself in there, like in the rock. And it started coming out, like the mud and the ants and all their eggs. And just right there, it was like the Spirit said, this is like a stronghold. You have to, not just I'm washing the rock and I'm getting dirt off of it. Like the water's coming off, the mud's coming off the rock. But then I had to find the hole, and I had to put the hose up the hole, and I had to like just wash it all out. So to me, that's the analogy of this process that we have to go through. Like, we have to have the guidance of the Holy Spirit, have discernment, and like get in the right places. Because I might be washing over here and it's great and stuff's coming off and it's getting cleaner, but I'm not breaking down that stronghold. I'm not getting out those ants with all of their problems, right? Unless I'm like being guided and like getting it in the right spot. It has to get right in the right spot to break down that stronghold. So in a lot of ways, that's what the coaching or this processing is about. It's like, okay, I know some strategies, I know some things that'll work, but nothing is working for this, or I'm trying it and it's not working. That's when you have to do that breaking of the strongholds. And that's kind of like what you just described with your client of like, you're praying, you're pondering, you're discerning. And then that's when you're finding the solutions that finally break free all of that stuff. And like we've talked about so many times, we call it an upstream problem. That's one of those things, like if you get rid of one of those things, a stronghold, everything downstream like solves itself.
So much easier.
Now you're not worrying about all the fighting and all of this and the crying and the bedtimes and this, because you took that out. And now it's like, whew, everything flows. It's so much easier. And so that's why that's why we're making it harder than it needs to be, because we're not doing the cleansing that needs to occur.
And get to the cause and all the symptoms go away.
Right.
That's so true.
And the other analogy that I loved is because it was the water. It was the living water. It's like we're using the blood of Christ. We're using the living water to get into those holes and those dark places and the rocks and and we're breaking down those strongholds. So,
I love it. That's awesome.
Okay. Well, we got through one question.
Yeah. It'll be like this, I think, most times. So we got lots of episodes coming, which is great.
Yeah.
And we need to get this. So any more questions? Send them over. Ask away. We love to help. We want to help you create your own unique, extraordinary family life. Okay. Love you guys. Reach upward.